Hi y'all, welcome back to another interesting tutorial. Today we are going to be learning how to make this beautiful gown. It's a separate gown, like it's a two separate gown sewn separately. You can actually achieve this by making them as one gown. Okay, so I'm going to start by making my own the way we see the picture. I'm going to be sewing it separately. Now I have 3 yards of this net. I am first of all making the inner part. Now I have gone ahead to mark my shoulder divided by 2 plus ½ inch allowance. Now I'm going to go ahead and place my tape to mark my shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, and shoulder to the half length. The inner part, which is the full or the long gown, is going to be having a half length. Okay, and that is what I am marking out right now. The inner gown, which is the long gown, that is what I am marking right now. Now the neck width is going to be 3 inches. You can mark 2.5 inches because it's a turtleneck. So I mark 3 inches, and the depth is going to be 3 inches too as well. So now the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do is just to connect it like this. Let me repeat it again. You can mark 2.5 inches and the neck depth of 2 inches or 2.5 inches depending your size. Okay, but I choose to mark 3 inches by 3 inches for the turtleneck. All right, now I've gone ahead to mark my chest line, and I'm drawing the armhole line like this. After that, I'm going to connect my shoulder slope. Now I'm going to go ahead and cover out my armhole. Like this net I'm making use of is giving me a little issues, so that if you're not seeing the chalk clearly, please just bear with me. Now the next thing is to divide my bust measurement by 4 plus my seam allowance. This gown I'm making is not going to be having any darts. Okay, if you like, you can add that to your own fabric. I have 3 yards of net for this netless. I have added my underbust divided by 4 plus seam allowance and the waist divided by 4 plus seam allowance. I'm going to go ahead and connect it like so. After that, the next thing is to cut. This is the front of the long gown. I'm going to be using the front to cut out the back, the upper back. I'll cut out my armhole. Like I said before, I am recreating this gown the way it actually is on our thumbnail, because it's a two separate gown. You can achieve your own by sewing it together like two in one. So I'm going to use this front to cut out the back, the upper back. You can see that I have placed it on this fabric, folding it into two, and I have my neck depth of 1.5 inches. You can mark 1 inch. Okay, and I have my zipper allowance. I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. Now the upper back for the inner long gown is ready. The next is for me to cut the down part. I'll just remove ½ inch on the waistline for my zip tightening to avoid zip bugging. I'll cut out my armhole. I'm going to cut the back neck depth like this. Now the next is to cut the front neck depth. Remember, the front neck depth is 3 inches. Now I am done with the upper part. I'm going to head over to the down part. Now I have the remaining length of my gown because it's 70 inches. The full length is 70 inches. When I deducted my half length, the remaining one is what I'm going to be marking out. Now I place my tape to get my waist to the hip line, which is 9 inches. I'll mark waist to the knee. I'll mark 19 and a half. This upper part is going to be my waist line. I'll just mark my hip line. Now I'm going to, on the upper part, I'm going to divide my waist by 4 plus seam allowance. Coming to the hip line, I'm going to mark down my hip divide by 4 plus seam allowance. Now on the hip measurement, on the knee measurement, whatever I have on the hip, I'm going to remove 2 inches from the whatever I have on the hip, and I'll bring the remaining one to the knee line and mark it like this. Then whatever I have on the knee line, I'm going to take it down to the hemming part. I'm going to go ahead and connect all the lines. And you can, if you watch, you can see that I'm cutting both the back and the front of these down parts. I also have my zipper allowance. If you watch closely, you will see the zipper allowance for the back. Now whatever I have on the knee, I'm going to bring it down to the hemming part, and I'm going to go ahead and cut it. So I am cutting both the front and also the back, the down part of this inner long gown. Now this is how the shape looks like, very beautiful. You can see how the shape is looking. Now I am done. I'm heading over to cut the upper part, which is the short gown, and I'm going to be drafting it out. Now I have my pattern paper here. The next thing I'm going to do is to put down some measurements, and I want to remind us that this style that I'm making, like I have said it earlier, that it's a 2 separate gown. It wasn't sewn together. The picture on the thumbnail is a 2 separate gown, but you can achieve it by making it into one gown. But I am just recreating the way it is on the thumbnail, making them separately. Now I'm going to divide my shoulder by 2 plus ½ inch. I'm going to place down my tape like this to mark from the shoulder to my bust. This upper part, this upper short gown is not going to be having any half length, okay? I'll just mark shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, shoulder to waist, shoulder to hip, and shoulder to the full length of the gown, which is 44 inches. Now I am marking the neck width of 3 inches, 3.5 inches. The neck width of 3.5 inches. Then the depth is going to be 7.5 inches. You know, it's a V neckline, okay? After marking 7.5 inches for the depth, I'm going to rule all the lines across like this. I'll rule my shoulder to bust, shoulder to under bust, shoulder to waist, shoulder to hip, and shoulder to the full length like this. Having done that, I am going to, from the bust, I'll go up with 2 inches. For my chest line, I'll rule it out. I'll rule out my armhole line. Go down by 1 inch for the shoulder slope. Connecting it to the neck width. Now I'm going to divide whatever that is remaining on the armhole by 2 and curve it out. But before doing that, I'm going to mark out my neck depth line. It's a V neckline. I'm going to measure what I have on the armhole by 2, then place my French curve and curve the armhole like this. So the next thing is going to be the inputting the bust the measurement. This one is not going to be having any dots. You can go ahead and put that to your own. I'll mark down my bust divide by 4 plus my seam allowance. No, I'm not adding seam allowance for now. Now from the waist, I'll mark my waist divide by 2. I'll mark my hip divide by 2. Now coming up, I'm going to be adding my seam allowance. On the bust point, I'm going to add my seam allowance to bust point. Then to the under bust, I will add my seam allowance. Now coming to the waist, I am going to add my waist seam allowance plus extra 1.5 inches. Okay. Coming to the hip, I will add my hip seam allowance, which is 1.5 plus extra 4 inches, because this outer gown has one curvy shape look. So I'm trying to get that curvy effect. Now to get the curvy shape, I am going to be making use of my pencil to cover that curvy effect. If I'm curving it, I'll be adding extra inches to it. So I'm using my pencil to get the shape very well, from the waist down to the hip and to the hemming part. But the waistline is not going to be having too much allowance. Where the allowance is going to come in is from the hip down to the hemming part. Okay, I am trying to get the shape by using my pencil. I'm still going to go ahead and outline it. So I will measure what I have on the hip. Whatever I have on the hip, I'm going to remove 1 inch from it and bring it down to the hemming part. I'll mark. Now I'll still continue to use my pencil to get the curvy shape. So the curve shape is going to start from the hip down to the hemming part. You can see that the shape is now coming out. You can see the beautiful shape is now coming out. So this is it, guys. The extra allowance I added, in fact the total allowance I added from the hip is 5 inches minus the 1.5 inches allowance. Okay, so I have 17 inches total from the hip measurement. While on the hemming part, I remove 1 inch from the hip and mark whatever I have left on the hemming part. Now this is how the shape looks like. I am going to go ahead right now and cut it out. So that is why it's good for you to draft it on the paper, because if you're marking it out on your fabric, you're going to make a mistake or ruin the fabric. It's better for you to draft it on the paper before transferring it on your fabric. Now after cutting it out, I'm going to use it to cut out, placing this paper on my fabric. And the best fabric to use for this style is a Mikado fabric. You can use a Mikado fabric for this style, okay? But this is a tutorial. I'm going to be using a doll face for my own. You can see how beautiful it's looking, okay? Now I have folded my fabric into two. I have 2 yards of doll face for this. I'm going to go ahead and cut out the front. After cutting the front, I'll still use this paper to cut the back. Now guys, I don't want our tutorial to be too long. I'm going to be uploading a video of how to sew this style. So this one is just the cutting. Now the neck depth for the back is going to be 1.5 inches. You can come down with 1 inch for the neck depth. Then I'm going to connect it to the neck width of 3.5 inches, including my zipper allowance. After that, I'm going to open it up for us to see what it looks like. Then on the waistline, I'm going to remove 1/2 inch to do my zip tightening, okay? I'm just going to go ahead and connecting it like this. After that, I'm going to go ahead and cut it out. Like I said before, I'll be uploading a tutorial on how to sew this together. Alright. This fabric is very rumpled. I'm going to open it up after cutting for us to see how it looks like, how the shape we just drafted came out. So guys, just stay tuned for the sewing part of this video. This is just the cutting, and I wouldn't want our video to be too long, okay? This is it guys. Thank you for watching and see you on the next tutorial. Bye for now.